into it. I was super, I mean, of all the things they talked about yesterday, I was most into these camera upgrades, as John was saying, sort of get into that more pro level photography, not only with the cameras, but the features too, that macro photography that you're going to get on those pro models. Really hard to follow John because he really took a lot of the thoughts out of my mouth. But you know, I think really thank you, John. Thank you. I always appreciate an apology. But I think really the gap this year between the actual 13 models and the pros, okay, you get a lot of the same features, but with those carrier subsidy deals that you guys were just showing on screen, $1,000 off, $900 off of something, then you're going to sort of say, okay, I'll get the pro model. And so more people may go for those higher end features and get those higher end features.
Yeah. Wamsi, I remember prior phone cycles where we would literally talk about what ASPs mean for EPS. Is that going to be a big function in the coming prints?
Yeah, good morning, Paul. Thanks for having me. Yes, I think that ASPs are going to be important, and the few moving pieces that we really have to remember when it comes to ASPs, right? Yes, they have introduced these higher ASP and higher end SKUs that have some amazing functionality, and that's absolutely true. But you have to remember they're comping a year last year where you had huge stimulus checks in the pockets of consumers, and it was a very unusually high skew towards ASPs last year, which was an unusual event. So we are actually comping that. That's number one. Number two, they had a staggered launch of iPhones last year, so that changes some of the seasonality and the mix and sort of what was available, what was not available, and that has an impact on ASPs too. So I think in the big scheme of things, we have to be cognizant that despite some of these increased ASP offers that they do have in the marketplace, they're also putting in an iPhone 11 at $499, which is super capable. So if you're thinking about new users coming into the ecosystem, that might be an attractive price points for them. Carrier subsidies, sure, they were there last year too. Maybe on the margin, they're slightly better this year, but you also have some headwinds to consider in terms of those ASPs.
Joanna, you know what else I think is interesting here? The front-facing camera is the Cinderella of personal tech, right? Like the rear-facing camera was the wicked stepsister who was getting all the play and the higher features. But now the front-facing camera, both in these iPads and in the phones, I think to some degree, is getting that same quality and even that wide-angle feature that allows the camera to follow you. And I wonder how much of this is product development coming out of COVID, where more and more companies, Apple in particular, are realizing, hey, we want to look good.
Yeah, I'm wondering who the Wicked Witch is. We'll figure that out with maybe the next product launch. But I think you're totally right. And they also announced yesterday iOS 15 is going to launch on Monday, on September 20th. And for people who have older iPhones, you get a whole new software stack there, which includes new FaceTime features, which really just proves that like everyone on their iPhones was using on their iPhones during the pandemic was using FaceTime, and Apple's bringing a lot of those features from Zoom and WebEx and Facebook to FaceTime.
Yeah, and Wamsi, just looking beyond the iPhone itself to the Apple Watch, we did get a little bit more insight into how Apple's continuing to invest in fitness and health. What do you see coming down the line there, and how does that impact your outlook for those devices?
Yeah, Julia, look, I mean, it's interesting, right? They started the show with sort of Apple TV Plus. Focus on services and broadening out the ecosystem is super critical to Apple. We all know that. We think there should have been maybe more sensor integration within these devices, potentially in the Apple Watch. We think down the road we're going to see temperature sensors, possibly in AirPods. You're going to get blood pressure and blood sugar monitoring. And these are all coming down the road, and they're all going to tighten this ecosystem. But I think what's also important here to keep in light is that this focus on services has to be looked through a lens of these amazing services and platforms that Apple is building, but also the risks that are there that are emerging from either the Google DOJ lawsuit or with the Epic thing, which is pretty much in limbo right now, but can create a real headwind to both the multiple and the growth in the near term.
Joanna, DigiTimes today says that shortages of integrated circuits on some consumer tech have started to actually ease, with some chip makers already engaged in inventory correction, particularly in China, which is welcome news, although we did notice yesterday that some, say the watch, for example, not available until later this fall. Are you telling readers that they're going to be able to find what they want to buy?
I actually asked Apple this yesterday. They are pretty proud of the fact that they have all 4 of the iPhones out right now. They actually haven't done that in the last couple of years. Last year, remember, it was that staggered approach, just the bigger models available at first, or just the mid-sized, and then the small and the big later. The year before that, the Apple 10, the iPhone 10R wasn't available for a few months after, or a few weeks after the launch. So now all will be available, pre-orders this Friday, then the following week. So in terms of iPhones, I think they're feeling pretty good. Obviously, the watch is the big question. And, really, when you look at that watch, there were some details that we heard about, obviously, the design, the new durability, but we didn't hear that much about the details around the different models. Will there still be 2 models? We're hearing, yes, there will be 2 different sizes, but they're definitely holding back on that product right now, likely because of this.
Yeah, interesting, Joanna. I know you don't believe people should buy new phones just to upgrade to 5G, but I'm wondering, as you look back on everything you learned yesterday, what kind of upgrade cycle we're going to see after these announcements?
I feel like I can't say that 5G point enough on this show and on this network. But and I think actually yesterday when you look at the presentation, there was very little focus on 5G. Felt like they put that in the presentation as a nod to the carriers. But I think this year, again, those carrier subsidy deals are going to push people. I've been getting lots of emails. I don't want to brag about how many emails I get about people asking me about what iPhone they should buy. But it was interesting to me that I'm seeing from people who have iPhone 12s, should I get this iPhone? Which, sure, there are always those people every year. But again, remember, most people hold on to their phones 3 to 4 years. That means they are going to be getting 5G for the first time. They are going to be getting all these new camera features, new performance. And I think that's really what Apple's looking at for the broad population.